My hobby is sleeping in my car. I like to do it on days before public holidays, and not the weekend. I don't want people to see me. Usually if they do, they report me to the police. The police usually just want to move me on. If it's not the police, then it's the youngsters. They peer into my car windows. This makes choosing a perfect spot all the more difficult for me. It was around summer of last year. It was late at night and I was just driving around trying to find a decent place to sleep. I was on a mountain road and I saw a turning for what looked like a disused building. The rusty old sign told me that this used to be an observatory. I saw a truck in the car park. He must be taking a rest too, I thought as I pulled in. Perfect. There was another truck in the car park too. I parked away from the trucks in the middle of the car park. I pulled out my phone and played with it until I became sleepy. Then I put the seat all the way back and pulled my blanket over me and fell asleep. I woke up during the night because my throat was dry. I went to grab a drink from my bag, and just as I did that, I heard a small stone or something strike the back of my car. I looked in my rear view mirror, and there was nothing there. I guess that it might have been a bug or something. It's not uncommon. I took a drink, and I got back to sleeping. The second time I woke up was because I really needed the restroom. I looked at my phone. 4:27. I got out of the car. I kind of hoped that the abandoned observatory had a toilet, but it didn't. I didn't really want to climb a fence and wander around in the middle of the night to find out if there was one either. So I found a spot out of the way and relieved myself. As I was doing so, I heard one of the truck doors open and shut. Someone else is awake, huh? As I came back to my car, I saw him standing there. He looked to be about my age. He wore glasses.
Hey, you couldn't sleep last night, right? Were you scared or something?
I looked at him a bit puzzled and asked, "What do you mean?"
Ha! You didn't notice then?
I was a bit spooked by his response. Then he began to elaborate. He said that he was watching a DVD when I pulled into the parking area. He thought that it was a bit odd since truckers almost exclusively use this place to park up and take a rest. When the DVD finished, he looked up and noticed a woman stood in front of my car with her hands on the hood. He said that seeing this freaked him out. He took his eyes off the woman for just a second, and when he looked back, she was at my driver's side door. He said that when she noticed him looking her way, she ducked down by the side of my car. He kept checking on me, and after a while, he couldn't see the woman anymore. He then said he went to sleep in the back of his truck after checking all his doors were locked. I thought that he was just trying to freak me out, so I questioned him. He said that if I didn't believe him, that I should go and check my window for handprints, as she had cupped her hands against the glass, possibly to look in on me. He came with me to check the window to see if there were any handprints there. There wasn't any. I thought at this point he might have been doing a kind of thing that truckers did to make sure us non-truckers didn't use their parking spots or something. I don't know. We then went to check the hood. There was something there this time. A small pair of indentations at the front of the car. I was pissed. Then I heard the trucker shout,
Hey, there's something worse around the back, buddy.
There were some scratches and another little indentation, as if something had struck it. I heard the door of the other truck open and close, and an older man came over. He said that he had seen her before. What? I thought.
She's been here before. She did the same to me my first night here. I thought she was after some company, but she never said a word. She just stared. I asked a local about her, in a bar, down that road. Turns out that she does this all the time, but only to newcomers to the parking lot. It's fine though. She won't hurt you. All she does is stare.
I looked at the other truck driver in shock, and I hightailed it out of there. I just could not handle that. Knowing how dark and isolated we were in that location was enough for me. For someone to arrive on foot, way out in the middle of nowhere, in the dead of night, just to mess with me? Nope. I'll never go there again. This happened when I was younger. When I was younger, I used to take piano lessons after school. It only took 10 minutes by bicycle to get to my piano teacher's home. It was a trip that I would make solo. I would usually finish the lesson around 6 p.m, and from my piano lesson, I would ride home. This story takes place on a cold winter's night. It was already dark out when school ended. It kind of scared me, the dark, at that age. I was cold too. I just wanted to get to the lesson, get it over and done with, and go home. I was in more of a hurry than usual. After the lesson, as soon as I left the teacher's house, I noticed that there was a car parked in front of the park by my teacher's house. I slowly rode past the car, and as I did this, its lights turned on, and it slowly started to crawl down the street behind me. At first, I thought nothing much of it. I was riding down the main road, and I made my usual turn into a more narrow and less traveled road. The car behind me followed. This was a little odd, since I didn't ever see many cars on this road. Then when I took a left, the car did too. When I took a right, the car did too. At that point, I could no longer convince myself that this was coincidental. I was sure now that I was being followed. I tested it. By going back on myself, the car copied my route. I began to sweat a little, even though it was a winter's night. A corner came up, and I needed to act on my suspicions. As soon as I turned the corner, I pedaled like crazy on my bike. It was shaking side to side at one point, and I was sure that I would crash into the street, but thankfully, I didn't. I noticed that someone had left their garage open. Perfect, I thought, as I swerved into it. I hurriedly turned the lights off on my bike, and in a panic, I scrabbled to take off my reflective jacket. Sweat, now amassing my brow, I tried to get down low, in the remaining milliseconds I predicted I had before that creepy car would skulk around the corner. I remember watching my breath puff white fog in front of me as my eyes were fixed on the road. My plan seemed to have worked. The garage hid me. The car slowly cruised by. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a look at the driver. Not sure if I wanted to anyway. It was a very frightening experience for me. I didn't know what to do, but something told me to just stay in the garage a little while longer. I wrestled with this decision in my mind. I wanted to just get home where it was safe and bright and warm. But I couldn't shake the feeling that leaving the garage was a very bad idea. I'm really glad that I trusted my hunch, as not 5 minutes later, I saw that creep's car pass the garage again, presumably still looking for me. I had tears in my eyes. I just stayed hidden in the garage for at least half an hour, maybe even longer. Then I burst out of there and pedaled like mad to get home. And that was the last time I went home alone from the piano lesson. I still haven't got my head around it. What would have happened to me if that creep had found me? Would I still be here today? OP's name is Mayumi. This happened when I was back at university. I picked up a job working for a gift delivery company for some extra cash while I was studying. The job involved me using my own car to make these deliveries. It was a really decent job, as not only did I get an hourly wage, but I got a bonus on top of that too. So, I have been a habitual late riser since the day I was born. I would try to make as many deliveries as possible in one single day, often working well into the night. One night, I was making my final delivery of the night, dropping off a gift to a really big house. This didn't really surprise me, as the gifts that the company I was working for didn't come cheap. I parked up and made my way to the porch and rang the bell. A middle-aged woman came to the door. The standard small talk ensued. She seemed nice. As it was the last delivery of the day, I was in a pretty upbeat mood myself. I needed her to sign my slip to say that she had received the parcel. Before I offered her my pen, She had already headed to another room to grab her own. She came back, and her smile vanished. She looked so angry at me, like a mixture of anger, hurt, and confusion. I really didn't like it. Red flags were going off. She took the box from me and opened it.
Hey, what did you do to this box? Why does it look like it's been opened and resealed? What's going on here?
Her voice took on this antagonistic tone. I stood there, lost for words. It was really shocking to see someone go from being so friendly to accusatory. For no good reason, too. Of course I hadn't messed with the box, or replaced its contents.
Well, you just gonna stand there, or are you gonna start telling the truth? Or do I have to get your boss on the phone?
She was so angry at me. I guessed that she would keep shouting at me, but I really wasn't ready for what she did next. She grabbed my arm and heaved me into her house and threw the door shut, then locked it. I didn't know what to say, so I just whimpered protests and stated my innocence. I was really panicking, and this woman seemed volatile. She turned away from me and picked up the phone in the hallway. I was on the verge of tears. Why was she accusing me of something I hadn't done?
Yes, is that the police? Yes, thank you. I have a delivery person in my house. I noticed something strange when I went to get a pen. I saw an individual in the delivery person's car. A man wearing a ski mask. I can't be certain, but I'm sure he had a weapon in his hand. A knife, maybe. He was on the back seat.
After the call, she came over to me and said,
"Look, I'm sorry to put you through that, but I had to come up with something really quick, and I had to make it convincing."
By the time the police arrived, there was no sign of the guy. I learned my lesson that day, to lock the car every time I leave it, even if I think I'm only going to be a moment or two. I gave that man the window he needed, and he used it. And I cannot tell you how grateful I am to my last customer of the nights, quick thinking. I wrote a series of stories based on my career as a tow truck driver. You can find them online. This isn't one of my stories though, and I'm really glad it isn't, to be perfectly honest. It's one of my buddy's stories. He worked for me and he had a long career as a tow truck driver. This story takes place about 15 or 16 years ago, maybe a little more, a little less. What happened was infamous. It was all over the local news. It started off innocuously enough. A simple job for people in our line of work. It was just a car which had been parked in the car park of a residential area. The windshield stuffed with illegal parking tickets and threat of impending impound. Residents' complaints about the vehicle was constant. The police even got involved, and eventually my friend was called to take the car away. Since no one came forward or reacted to the threat of removal, my friend requested police assistance, just in case. Things tend to get a bit more serious in people's minds when they see a tow truck as opposed to a bunch of tickets. And it can go bad quite quickly. My friend wasn't too worried because he was a veteran of this kind of work. I told him when the call came in that he might be better off taking the flatbed truck because of the length of time that the vehicle had been there. He was already thinking the same as me. So he arrived at the building and noticed the car instantly. He positioned the truck and hopped off to make an inspection. Standard process. Seemed like a routine job, he said, until he noticed the trunk. There was something wrong with the trunk. He was grateful to have the police on hand because the trunk appeared to be welded shut. It could still be towed since we had the tools to access the driver's side door. That's never an issue, but what was the story with the trunk? The policeman on scene wanted it open. He said that if we attempted to open it, perhaps the owner of the car would come running out, and then the cop could charge him. My friend tried with his tools, but to no avail. At this point, a few people from the residential area had gathered to look. My friend chose to use a winch to try and lift the trunk open. The car lifted off the ground, and when it came back down, some black liquid splashed onto the car park's floor, beneath the car. He said it appeared to have come from the trunk. And it stank. The small crowd stepped back without being asked to. My friend did the right thing and refused to tow it at this point, until the police had invited forensics to take a look. When all the relevant people were present, they confirmed that the odor could be something sinister. An authorization was given to rip the trunk open. With the help of the police, my friend did as he was asked. The trunk came open. What followed was an acrid cloud of flies. They stepped forward to see what was in the trunk, and my friend said that he saw a liquefied human skeleton. The stench, he said, was indescribable. He said he threw up almost instantly. He called me for moral support, but I had worked the night before, and I was sleeping. Man, did he curse me the next day for that. You see some very weird things in this line of work, sometimes supernatural, and sometimes very explainable. But to me, the truth is always stranger than fiction. This is where the story ends, and that's as much as I could translate, but I wasn't really satisfied with this, so I wanted to find out a little bit more. So I did a little digging of my own, and found an article which may correlate to the time in question. There will be a link to this article in the description, in English of course. A woman's body was found Monday in the trunk of a car in a parking lot in Tama, Western Tokyo, the Metropolitan Police said. The police believe the woman is 59-year-old owner of a bar in Kawasaki. The car was owned by the woman, they added. At around 9:30 a.m., police were informed that a foul odor was coming from the car, which had been there since Tuesday. In woods in Kanagawa Prefecture on Thursday, police found the body of a 70-year-old man who was living with the bar owner. They said that they are looking into whether the two deaths are linked. The woman had been missing since the 16th of October, and her relatives had asked the police to investigate her whereabouts.